Happy African History Month. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. Got a question for you. Do you know who the first Prime Minister of Ghana was? Yes, it was Kwame Nkrumah, who was not just the first Prime Minister of Ghana. He was actually Prime Minister before Ghana became Ghana, when it was known as the Gold Coast. And there's three things I want to talk about when talking about him. One, that he helped the country become the first African nation to achieve independence from the colonialism that Africa was under. And that's critical because it's easy to forget or even not to know, especially just with the sorry state of of America's public education. And it's a sorry state, plus there's certain things they just don't like to talk about. And this is, I think, something especially that Black Americans is really interesting, because finding out that while Black Americans were fighting for civil rights, human rights, were fighting against oppression, injustice, Black Africans were also fighting against oppression, injustice, were fighting for independence. And that shared history, that common threat is critical in realizing why it was necessary for certain movements, and particularly like the Pan-African movement, to exist. And so if you take a look at, in fact, if we're talking about Pan-Africanism, that actually brings us to a second point, because how Kwame Nkrumah became an advocate, how he was a staunch advocate of Pan-Africanism. He worked with other African leaders, other Black African leaders, and he worked with Black Americans and Black people all over the globe. So he had ties to Martin Luther King, and they were admirers of each other. In addition to that, he was an advocate of Marcus Garvey's Pan-Africanism, and because before he became Prime Minister, he actually spent time in the U.S. and he had an opportunity to see the things that Blacks in the treatment that Blacks in the U.S. were suffering under. So he was able to take the Pan-Africanism, that Pan-African message from Marcus Garvey, and we'll be talking about Garvey later on in the month, and take it back to Africa. And I remember seeing him give a speech where he was talking about forming the United States of Africa. Ultimately, he was one of the founding members of the Organization of African Unity. And it was that realization of the shared history, the shared destiny of Black peoples across the globe, that is something that I think we can definitely remember and be aware of right now, today. I mean, you have groups like FBA and ADOS that exist within America right now. For those of you who don't know, Foundational Black Americans is FBA, and American Descendants of Slaves or Slavery. And if we're at a point in time where there's hostility between Black Americans, Black Africans, Black people across the diaspora, that's something that needs to be addressed and dealt with and eliminated, because I mean it's too serious for us to forget exactly how things progressed and where we got to where we are, to allow geography and ignore the history that unites us, and just allow this to divide us. So that's why I think this is being aware of things like this and somebody like Kwame Nkrumah is really important because he had that message of unity, which was very important. The third thing I want to talk about is what he did in government. So yes, like I said, in fact, I don't think I've really hit this point yet this month, but there's a tendency of people to deify heroes and historical figures, and we shouldn't do that, because then that's how you repeat mistakes. And some things he did in government, yeah, that's kind of stuff we don't want to repeat, where he basically became a dictator, where he named himself, changed the Constitution, named himself president for life, and he was doing things in his government like establishing a law where anybody could be arrested. They could be arrested without trial and just held. So things like that is what ultimately led to him being deposed. And even though the U.S. had a hand in that, they were concerned about his ties to communism. That's, I mean, being aware of how even a desire for something good can result in steps that aren't good and actions that are messed up. So it's like, yeah, when keeping it real goes wrong. But he ultimately died in exile. He died in I believe it was in Guinea. And those three things, however, I think are very important in remembering and going forward. In remembering, hey, yeah, mistakes are made, wrong actions are made. These are human beings, and we have to keep historical context in context. That in Ghana they were fighting for independence too, all across the African continent, and there was unity between historical figures, between black leaders in Ghana, black leaders in America. There was shared admiration and purpose. And that's something that we really need, not just amongst, the masses, amongst leaders. It's like there should not be this ego trip of people like, no, I want to be the leader, and then not working with other leaders. No, this is, if we're trying to rebuild the black community, then black leaders are going to have to work with one another. As always, don't forget to give me a like, share, and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.